Hi, and welcome to this first episode of the Drawing of the Three season of the show. If you're returning from season 1, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. Go check out season 1. We talk about the entire series in order. But we're so happy to have you here regardless. Two things I want to let you know about. It's especially important as we begin talking about a new book that people tell their friends about the series. So direct people that you know who like Stephen King or The Dark Tower to radiofreemidworld.com. And if you like this show a lot, it's only possible because of the support of the Duckfeed Patreon backers. Go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. We have a whole network of shows that are supported by your support, and we're incredibly grateful for it. So let us join Roland on the beach. Let us see who we have with us. Gosh, so excited. Let's just go. Welcome to Radio Free Midworld, a Dark Tower podcast, or a podcast about the Dark Tower series of books. I forget which one I usually say. I'm your host, the ever-indecisive Kole Ross, and I am joined today by Evan Jones Thorne.
Hello, hello.
Jeremy Greer.
Hi.
And Stephen Veilleux.
Hello.
Hey, and we're here. This is exciting. We're starting the new season of the show, talking about the Drawing of the Three, subtitled Renewal, and published in 1987, back from a short kind of mid-season break to talk about The Eyes of the Dragon. Nobody on this episode, well, one person on this episode has heard it because he snuck a peek.
Damn it, Stephen.
Yeah, it was me, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're the worst.
But
wait.
Yeah, but that was a lot of fun. But it's really good to be back on the main path, and boy, am I excited to talk about the Drawing of the Three. So we have every guest here is returning. So I just want to get any kind of impressions of the Drawing of the Three that you guys have, to let the listeners know what they can expect. Like who here especially loves the Drawing of the Three? I'm imagining all of us are raising our hands.
Yeah, I really do love this one.
Yeah.
I told anybody who listened to the first season, which you all should, has heard my story of experiencing this book for the first time, and how bizarre and disjointed and GPS centric it was.
The summary version of it is you ended up listening to an MP3 of the audiobook from Audible on a GPS, using that as an AirSats iPod, right?
A GPS that belonged to my dad, which I feel like is a very significant detail.
Okay, yes. It was your dad's Garmin.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if that is why I have so much affection for this one, or if I have the amount of affection I do in spite of that. But
hey, no, you like stuff you work for, It's gonna be sweeter than if it just got handed to you, like me. I just opened up my Kindle and bought it right after I finished Gunslinger, like a fucking soft chump.
Don't be so hard on yourself. I think we all just opened up our Kindle and bought it, so don't feel too bad. We can't all have GPSs from our dads.
I had to go. I was searching through yard sales for the first edition of this. All right, so I don't even want to hear it. All the work I had to go through.
Stephen, how about you?
I actually, having read through all the Gunslinger and Eyes of the Dragon, it was interesting reading those two books, because that is Stephen King doing something very, very different. Like the Gunslinger is him whenever he's, despite any kind of revisions, which are kind of tonally obvious when they come up, his writing style for both of those books seems like he's trying other things that I don't normally hear him, in his voice. And then this one is kind of a nice return to form for King. And I think that might have a lot to do with where a significant portion of this book takes place. It's back in our world again, and so it's kind of like like the nice little warm, cozy, drug fueled blanket that he wraps around us again whenever he's kind of talking about the thing that he normally does, which is cool guys using cool words, doing real cool things.
Yeah. How about you, Jeremy?
Man, this book moves, huh?
Oh God, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was really. It's been a while since I've read this, and coming from The Gunslinger, which compared to this book just reads like a slog. Like it kind of felt like it was taking a while to get through, and that book is quite a bit shorter than this one. There's some chapters of this, and I won't go into spoilers, but like that deal with kind of like some New York mafia stuff that in my head I thought went on for like 700 pages.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like breezing through stuff, and it's very, very fun. Like I love all of this stuff. Like it blows open the mythos. It introduces a bunch of really cool and fun characters. We're not going to get into some of the weirder aspects on this episode, but I'm kind of looking forward for the show to cover some of that. It's going to be kind of weird too. But man, like this is like, and even from the word go, like the very first chapter, you're like, it just changes this world completely. It changes Roland significantly, and like the courage to do that, to like really screw with your main character, it's really, really fun.
Yeah, it just it's funny because it is, kind of this renewal. It picks up the story where it left off, and it puts it on a set of greased rails almost. And strangely enough, or in contrast to that, most of the book, like if you look at physically what's happening, it is people crawling for every inch of their life, on basically bloody stumps. But like there's a lightness to what happens. And I think that the fact is, what makes it better, I don't know, what makes it feel faster is the fact that a lot of it is dialogue, oftentimes between a person and a person in their own head, be that an actual kind of like interloper like Roland ends up being, or by, figures of their past, as we see with kind of the big addition here in this episode, which is Eddie Dean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this episode is going to cover the prologue and the first 3 chapters of the Prisoner, which is the first book of this book. So up through Contact and Landing. The next episode is going to finish that one out, finishing out Eddie's kind of portion of this, and then we're going to move on to Lady of the Shadows and etc. on down the line. We know who all these people are. We got the prophecy. But this season, the season of the series will be 6 episodes long. So each of these sections getting 2. And we should probably start by picking up where we left off Roland in this prologue, after he's gotten this prophecy from the Man in Black, and he's now at the world's edge, at this ocean at the very west end of the world. And looking out and thinking about Jake and thinking about this stuff as terrible things happen. Jeremy, you alluded to this. They change his character a lot. Not only has he aged, but what ends up getting him?
my favorite thing in this book, the Lobstrosities.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if anybody's seen the Dark Souls 2 video, Rock Lobster, but like go Google that right away and just have that song playing in your head throughout this. But oh man, like he wakes up on the beach and these lobsters. And when I read this as a kid, I just kind of pictured them as smaller lobsters. But like, if you actually kind of read it and like do some work on like picturing these in your head, these are giant, scary lobsters. Like these things must be terrifying.
Well, lobsters are scary as in their realistic size. So these are truly Lovecraftian horrors that are coming out of the ocean after him.
Yeah, and they talk, which is the worst.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever seen a lobster's mouth, I'm just picturing the little like the miniature swimmerettes or whatever, the horrible mass of the horrible mass of tissue there, just letting out these utterances. These things are 4 feet long, and very accurately we said lobsters are monsters that we eat. So these things
they're so scary.
Yeah, they come in with the tide, and one comes up and bites off his index and middle finger on his right hand. So like immediately, there's an awesome line here, which is, I want to make sure that I say it correctly. I see serious problems ahead.
Yeah, it's like that's such a great this series does such a great job of telling a somewhat classic, hero's tale, while also, it's turning it on its head along the way. But the whole time, it's like things never go okay. Like immediately starting off the bat, like this couldn't possibly get any worse. Like they set him up as this real badass gunslinger guy, and they take away half of his hand. It's like, well, all right.
And we get all these we get all these details. Like there's a lot of just kind of details about the mechanics of the way these people and then we're going to get to the doors, how those doors work. We know we're assured that okay, he leads with the left on his guns, but he uses the right for most of the things, and also he jerks off with his left hand. So at least he has that going for him.
That was a nice.
So glad
detail.
you brought that up.
That's a little bit later, but as we're talking about this, we've got to get in there. Roland's a fan of the Stranger, and I'm not talking about the magazine in Seattle.
Yep.
Did it make you uncomfortable, Jeremy?
No. I was going to call him Dr. Strangelove, so go right ahead. Whatever you want to call him.
Oh my god.
Did we mention exactly how these lobsters talk, by the way? Like these questions that they just throw out like constantly, like you have it in your notes. Did a chick, dad a chum? Like that constant like weird talky rhymey thing is really, really fascinating.
Yeah, it makes them sound like birds, especially when later on as they start, mounting up a posse for revenge. You get the sense of them like calling back and forth, just passing information to each other.
In the episode that nobody but me has listened to, Eyes of the Dragon, you guys talked a lot about the like Stephen King repeating stuff, and I think this is one of the times where his repetition, these creatures' repetition, bleeds not only into like the characters of the book's minds. Like a lot of times they'll be thinking something and they'll just like have a stray like dot a clock, dot a tick, like kind of thought. But like me and Autumn do this all the time to each other. Like we'll say something and go and like rhyme it back in Lobstrosity language. So it's like good on Stephen King for having that kind of earworm.
Oh yeah, and that's something that like so this came out 5 years after the book version of the Gunslinger. So that was 82. This is 87, and the intervening time he developed an ear. Is what happened. It feels like you just comparing and contrasting. There's a certain amount of like lyricism to not even just Lobstrosity singing like birds, but just the way that he puts phrases together. Like there were so many things that I highlighted that I didn't include because otherwise it would just be me spouting off quotes even more than I usually do.
Just reading an audiobook version.
Yeah, and that already exists. Like you can, there's no sense.
I was actually going to say, Cole, you had referenced listening to the entire series to prep for the podcast. And I think that part of why I like Drawing of the Three so much is that the audiobooks are so good. Mm-hmm. Like the narrator does such a good job, and the Lobstrosities in the audiobook, like the way that he says the did a chick, did a chum, mm-hmm. is forever lodged in my brain, even when I'm reading rather than listening. And it's definitely one of those things that you just kind of keep coming back to.
Yeah, this is the first one. So if you're listening to the modern kind of versions of the books, this is the first one where Frank Muller does the narration, picking up. Again, because things are timey-wimey, as we say on Bonfireside Chat, Frank Muller did the original version of the Gunslinger and did everything up through book 4, but then George Goodall took over. But Frank Muller just has a very good, again, it's all about the ear, a very good ear for these character voices, although he portrays Eddie as more of a wise guy. Not like he's a smartass. Yes, he is a smartass, but more of like a New York style wise guy than I initially read. But that kind of evens out as it goes on.
Can I ask a question? And I don't want to make more work for you, so you can feel free to cut this out.
That's fine.
But I'm just kind of curious, and I've been curious because I haven't talked to anybody that's read the audiobooks. How do the audiobooks handle like the Detta-Odetta split? Like, is that just read like, do they lean into it, or do they like just read it as it is on the page? Like, how do they handle that? Because that has to be really, really weird to read something like that.
I'll let you handle that, Evan.
It's been a while since I've listened to it, obviously, but he kind of leaned into it. There was never really any doubt which of them was speaking.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to Detta talk made me incredibly uncomfortable, and that's I'm sure equal parts Stephen King kind of reaching beyond his ability as far as writing goes, mm-hmm. as to develop that character, and also a deliberate narration choice.
Yeah, it very much does lean in. So, I guess we're going to get there. The Lady of Shadows. Yeah. More is
we don't have to. I didn't want to spoil anything. I've been kind of curious, and I know you guys listen to the audiobooks, so I was just like, I wonder what they do with that weird patois that she puts on that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
He presents it as it's on the page, and as you
Cool.
probably would intone it in your head. So in that sense, he is a good interpreter of the text, which is what you want in an audiobook, in an audiobook performer.
Sorry for the digression.
No, that's perfectly fine, because like those are the two strongest voices in the book is Eddie with his fast talking smart assery, and Detta with. Well, we'll talk about that when we get there, won't we?
I like this moment where Roland is feeling incredibly vindictive about this Lobstrosity. I can't contain my joy at being able to say the word Lobstrosity on a podcast over and over again. This is so exciting for me. He's so upset about this Lobstrosity, like violating him and biting off two of his fingers, that he starts just stomping the hell out of it, like, and just crushing it and crushing it and crushing it. And then, as you might expect, like, he sees his like half digested fingers in the like remains of this Lobstrosity that he's crushed, and like immediately starts puking everywhere.
Yep.
Like not even Roland, like the last gunslinger, can handle that kind of sight.
Right.
I was gonna say, that means he must have obliterated that thing, which is kind of a shame, because I'm sure it had a lot of tasty meat in it. It's just a bigger version of a regular lobster.
Oh yeah.
He even goes so far as to notice the dust from the Golgotha under the fingernails while it's kind of sitting there in the stew. Yeah. No, he treats this thing like it's the fax machine from Office Space.
The entire prologue is just one of the most brutal scenes in the entire, at least in the entire Dark Tower series. Sorry for the weird pause between those words.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
it's true, and I cannot oversell how jarring this was. I mean, even just going, basically finishing the Gunslinger in 1 hour and then starting the next, and having this whole world change again. Not only is he 10 years older than he was before, but this badass who was screwing every woman he saw and killing everybody else is all of a sudden diminished to this, incredibly kind of just compromised frame.
Yeah, we see later that he's even got like his wounds are going to become infected. Like he becomes so miserable for, just the rest of this book, much less the rest of the series, but physically here, like that line, I see serious problems ahead, is kind of just, that's the thesis statement for the rest of this book. It doesn't get any better after this.
No,
it's also maybe like the quintessential Roland moment where he's just gone through all this, and I see serious problems ahead. That's his summary of, well, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I have no food, no supplies. I'm out of bullets. I've got blood poisoning. Yeah,
like
serious problems.
As we as we go into the first chapter here, he realizes, hey, my shells are wet. He counts. He only has 20 possibly good ones left. He notices that like the red lines are crawling up from his hand. So he's got blood poisoning or something like that when it reaches his heart, it's dead. It's almost like, I love that imagery, because it's almost like it's a fuse burning down or something like that. And he's feeling like phantom pains in his hand. He speaks to his finger saying, "Go away, you're ghost now, go away."
So he's played by Kiefer Sutherland, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Rushing to that Metal Gear Solid joke. I was trying to get there.
Just all of us just sprinting for the finish line. Yes, he's the punished gunslinger. Which that's not even just a joke. That's just me saying the. But and also he's on this beach, which is a desert of its own. He straight up pulls out the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, says, "Oh, there's water everywhere here, but there's nothing for me to drink." In this.
I was gonna say it's almost even worse than the desert, because he actually tries to imagine himself back where he was before, because just looking at this ocean like this is it's like taunting him.
Oh man.
This has to be a hard sight after being completely isolated from water, and then to see so much of it, and then again not be able to do anything with it is got to be like, even like just salt and the wound of his, fingers missing at this point. So,
do you wish you picked a different metaphor than salt?
I mean, I was trying to think of like maybe some garlic butter with the Lobstrosities, but I couldn't get there, so I went with salt. Like it's good old
delicious.
Good work, delicious.
Yeah. Well, this is also it's the first time that he's seen the ocean too. He talks about how he's like heard about it in children's stories. Like he has to force himself to see it because otherwise it just doesn't comport with anything. And
he really doesn't have any direction to go, so he just kind of chooses north. And I think he even says in there like this was an instinct, like this was just something like he felt this was the direction he had to go. And we haven't got to any like beam talk yet. I don't think we're quite there yet. But like this was just like, okay, like I've got two directions, and my my gunslinger instincts are telling me to go up.
Yeah, one book later, and it would have been Ka that told him to go north. Now it's just instinct, and I prefer that. But yeah, he decides to go north. So he puts the water on his left, one would presume. There's a little bit of confusion about that. And this is another disclaimer that we're just going to put in here. Direction and time are meaningless. And the sooner you can accept that it's going to be played fast and loose, the sooner we can get on. We can kind of enjoy the other stuff that is not either intentionally or unintentionally confusing. It's just the price of admission here.
The world has moved on. You can't trust cardinal directions anymore.
It's spacey wacy.
Yep.
Spacey wacy timey wimey.
Yep. We got a little bit of a little bit of Dark Souls 2 happening here. Or at least we're gonna, yeah.
Just wait for that elevator we come up at the end of the book. Oh,
I was when you mentioned Dark Souls 2, I was trying so hard not to make that elevator joke. But then you bring it up and make me spit it out. So yeah, it's just like the elevator in Dark Souls 2.
It's 3 years later and it's still, man,
it's still a point of contention.
It's
that's like my
go ahead.
Fifth Dark Souls reference tonight. I probably need to cool it. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. We're on this network. It's fine. It's fine.
It's all right. I got the Chalice Dungeon references coming. So
you guys play Dark Souls?
Oh wow, let's talk about that for 3 years.
Oh, that's crazy.
Anyway,
welcome to another episode of never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, so he decides to go north, and again, this is just harrowing. This is when it gets to that point where say like, oh, like everything about this book but the pace crawls. Like, it talks about like his legs coming unhinged as he goes, and he's just kind of bringing himself back to his feet out of sheer willpower.
Yeah, there's quite a few sequences in this book where Roland forces himself to do things, and for basically no reason. It just has to like grind it out. And Stephen King's writing here for all of these sequences, but especially this first one, like it really makes you feel. It makes you feel hopeless. Like it makes you feel like the futility of Roland's situation. Like Stephen mentioned earlier, like no supplies, no water, like no tobacco, like nothing to do except just walk and hope something different shows up that doesn't try to claw and eat you. So I really, really enjoy Stephen King's writing when he's doing this part.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That is exactly my thoughts on it. Like the enjoyment that I had in reading it to the misery that I felt while reading it is like, it's really it's kind of a testament. Again, looking at the Gunslinger, which is a good book, and Eyes of the Dragon, also a good book, but this is really where King is really starting to shine here, in like just reveling in the details without being hung up on anything.
Yeah.
Like him describing Roland digging his stumps into the sand to drag himself along is just
Yeah. Oh gosh, just that salty grit working its way into his freshly denuded stumps. No, thank you. Can't. So eventually he kind of sees something way off into the distance, and he has to like crawl the last quarter mile to get to it. But he sees a door, and King kind of similarly luxuriates in describing this thing, standing 6.5 feet high. Every single thing about it just kind of like crafted to this eerie specificity. No frame, no keyhole, a picture of a baboon filigreed onto the knob. Oh, and also it's only visible from one side.
Stephen King loves these doors, man. He loves them so much.
Yeah, I do too. I can't blame the man.
No, I'm with it. Like they're so cool, and like reading this for the first time and just like picturing this disappearing door on a beach that is in the middle of nowhere with the ocean behind you. Like it's an incredibly, I don't want to say compelling, but compelling mental image. Like it's just so evocative. Like it just puts you there immediately.
Yeah.
Like this is the image that I have in my head for this book. Like I can see it so clearly and vividly, and I kind of hope that the image somewhere shows up in the movie somehow, depending on how they spin that kind of stuff. But like the idea of well, I guess we're going to get to it in a second, where Roland tries to peek around to the back of it, and it's just gone. And so then he thinks that it's a mirage, and then he comes back around, and the monolithic nature of it is kind of, I don't know. In my mind, it is like that. It's helping me see what Roland sees whenever he's thinking of the tower in his mind, kind of. If that makes sense.
Yeah. This impossible thing that denies all kind of reckons on, size and space and physical continuity. He says at one point, if I reached out and knocked on it, I'd be knocking on nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we make the Dark Souls references, and I'll tick off the other part of the bingo box that, the idea of a door that stands in nothing is House of Leaves as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
So just so we can all be parodies of ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah. But this door has a single word etched on it, and it lets us know that we are, fulfilling the prophecy now. This is the prisoner door, and he opens it up and immediately falls back, completely staggered by what he sees. Something that is even more shocking than the vision of, the galaxy that the Man in Black gave him. He sees a fertile earth from thousands of feet in the air.
It's kind of like how I like to imagine, like I imagine it like when I give my grandma a VR headset and then just watch what happens.
Why would you do that to her?
Why
is your
not?
grandma mean?
No, she's a sweet lady, but she's also in her recliner, so it's fine.
Oh, I don't know. That seems
Checks
like
out, actually.
It's like it just seems like a particularly potent act of future violence on a paroled woman.
I mean, maybe, but still, the visual fits.
Did you blow vape smoke in her face? The world's confusing now.
Come on, Granny, I'm going to show you SimCity. Puts in Resident Evil 7.
Look at the suit. Look at it. But sorry,
Maybe all of those things happen.
This is so absurd. But no, he looks out, and this is kind of Roland's first real encounter with the real world. He's heard stories of it from Jake when he was under, but now he's seeing, out the window of a plane, through somebody else's eyes. And this introduces one of my a very funny through line through the series, which is Roland's just tenuous relationship with language and writing, and also just the fact that we do things a little bit differently over here in Midworld. So we're gonna get that, but Roland is very much he's going from one jungle to the other, like Tim Allen, but. So he looks around and he sees the people, and he calls them basically sheep, like they're all just kind of dully wasting paper. And a woman walks up to him and pants. What? and then he realizes that he is not looking through a door, but he's looking through eyes.
When I read or when I listened to this on a GPS as a teenager, the part where the door was eyes, I saw it coming, but it still completely tripped me out.
Yeah.
Somehow. It's just one of those things where it's kind of an obvious thing. You can kind of tell that's like it's being John Malkovich, like before being John Malkovich was John Malkovich.
Yeah. Just say Malkovich 50 more times.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Careful, you'll summon him.
Go ahead.
But it at the same time there's something about it, and I think it's everything that leads up to this point. Even though you kind of see it coming, you get caught up in Roland's amazement and confusion.
Yeah. And
that's just such a cool feeling when a book can do that.
Yeah. And he achieves it through kind of like an English 102 style trick, it seems, which is, don't make any assumptions, write as though there are no assumptions that can be made. Right. describe hijacking somebody's mind on an airplane, for the first time as though you were saying it to a Martian. It goes over all the mundane details and probably too exhaustive of detail, but there's a paragraph in here where he's recalling kind of a lesson from court saying, hey, you never see all that you see. What we're doing is seeing through Roland's eyes and catching every detail. And getting that first experience, or at least borrowing it a little bit anyway. I don't know. Maybe I'm papering over that too much, but it is a cool device.
No, I like this. My only issue with the door as eyes metaphor is it's kind of like filming video on your iPhone in portrait mode and then putting it up on YouTube, which is in landscape. Mm-hmm. Like you don't have a lot of left and right on this door, right?
Yeah,
I think that lends to the kind of the trippiness of the whole thing of like how he talks about like the vision that Roland is seeing that it's like shifting, that it's not necessarily like panning. Like this is the way I like to think of like looking through another pair of eyes, because we see stuff through like first person camera view, but nothing can shift the way your eyesight does and focus the way it does. And I have to imagine that has to be like one of the most disorienting things to view. I mean, I don't even begin to know how you would really imagine that, but that's kind of like part of the whole thing of like this limited scope. But it's also like it's still to scale with Roland since he's able to see through it. Like if that makes any sense, like the whole trans-dimensional stuff that's going on here, just all of this works really, really well for me.
Yeah, yeah, and he describes it as like vertigo too. Like just and it's funny that we mentioned the VR thing because that's totally the sense that I get out of this. It's like, oh god, the camera's moving, but my eyes are also moving. What's going on? So he's looking through the eyes of this man who orders a gin and tonic and then gets up to go to the restroom. And the first glimpse that he gets of the man that he's inhabiting is, this ring on his hand as he reaches out to open the door that has this, ring on it that is too big and vulgar to be real. Which again, leads to this idea of like Eddie as somebody who either doesn't have a lot of class or taste, or is acting like or wearing stuff that he thinks people with class or taste would wear. Like, just, I don't know, that fake paste ring is a pretty powerful thing. But then he gets into the bathroom and looks in the mirror, and we get our first look at this young man, age 21, dark hair, hazel eyes, and Roland realizes, oh, he's sick too. We recall that this prisoner, this prophecy person that he would draw, is infested by this demon called heroin.
One of the least subtle moments. I keep coming back to the prophecy, because just putting heroin in all caps, it's like, oh, okay. All right, yeah. No, heroin's a demon. Drugs are bad. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I know what to expect, but I didn't, because when he said, "Hey, he's addicted to heroin," I didn't know if he was going to be a sympathetic character, and I don't know if that speaks to my own prejudices about hardcore drug use or whatever. But I didn't expect the heroin addict to be as lovable as Eddie Dean is. Guys, Eddie Dean along with Cuthbert, I guess they're both kind of twinners, so that's kind of the same thing. Favorite characters in the series.
Hands down. Eddie Dean was like my drug addicted idol when I was in my teens reading this book, right? Like, he was a smart ass guy that was like naturally gifted at not taking any shit and shooting people. Like, he was just a badass. Like, even like Roland is like this impossible mythical badass, but Eddie Dean is like, oh, this kid came from New York. Like, this kid knows jokes. This kid like he's a kid. Like, it's weird thinking about this now, and I'm not trying to be ageist or anything, but like when I was 13 or 14, being 21 seemed like forever away. Now I'm way on the other side of that. Thinking like, this is a kid.
I was definitely under the impression, I always visualized Eddie as someone like mildly older than me, at least. But then reading that he's 21, like, what?
Yeah, I did not remember that at all before this read through.
Yeah, I figured he was in his like late 20s at the at the youngest. But yeah, just in my head, I pictured him as like this cross between like Paul Rudd and Aaron Paul. If I was casting the movie. But no, he's a fresh faced kid, is what he is.
Aaron Paul at the beginning of Breaking Bad would have been the perfect like casting choice for Eddie Dean in this. I don't know who they're going to cast for Eddie Dean. I kind of still hope it's Aaron Paul, but man, just perfect.
Young Aaron Paul, young Clint Eastwood. What a film!
Okay, if we can Bill and Ted this and just go back and grab
the that's totally possible. So it's fine.
Yeah, let's Polar Express this bee. Yeah,
hey, you guys watch Tron, right?
Yup.
Yeah, we got to bring that back up.
Okay, cool.
No problem there.
Again, just living into being parodies first. So, but yeah, Eddie is great. He always says simultaneously. He says the best and worst thing for a given situation. Yeah, I have nothing but love in my heart for Mr. Dean, even though he's in kind of a tough spot. He is
well, and right now he is a shitbag person. Like let's be real honest. Like he is not a great guy at this point where we meet him. Like he's gonna earn that love in the next really throughout this book he's gonna earn it. But right now he's like literally smuggling cocaine. And he's a heroin addict. Yeah, he's living with his junkie brother. So like he's not a great guy.
He's the type of character like we come to him at the perfect moment, because if we were at any point introduced to this character earlier in his life, I probably wouldn't really care about him at all. Mm-hmm. Like not because not for any prejudice or anything like that, but I like that his backstory is told the way that it is and as sparingly as it is throughout the rest of the series. That we come now whenever he is faced with Roland, essentially. Like we get introduced to him as Roland is, and I think that that's the best way to do this, so that we can. Roland recognizes almost immediately. I forget. I think it might be a little bit later when Roland actually recognizes that there's something in Eddie that is different than everyone else on the plane. That he's a natural fighter. That maybe he's not trained yet, but he has fight in him.
Yeah, he recognizes that Eddie has some steel in him.
Yeah. I really like that. That word for exactly what he's trying to express here, like that unwavering, strong, like backbone. Basically, that's a really evocative line.
Yeah, a little bit later, Roland watches his memories like movies almost, and he sees Eddie. Is it like Nassau? He's in the Bahamas, and he sees him like outsmarting this guy who tries to poison him or give him bad junk. Just kind of like by saying, "Yeah, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to fuck with me." Just kind of thinking on his feet. He really didn't to do anything like that before, but that was kind of a proving moment for him. It's hard not to have a little bit of sympathy for Eddie. And one of the most kind of endearing things about him is the fact that he carries around this version of his older brother, Henry, the great sage and eminent junkie, in his head, kind of parroting back this terrible, terrible advice. Like, hey, order a gin and tonic. This is an amazing quote. When you got to get down and you can't find the elevator, you do it any way you can, even if it's only with a shovel. So like if you can't needle pop right now, get a drink, because you're going to lose your mind if you don't get down somehow. Yeah. He tells him, hey, maybe don't quit cold turkey, go cool turkey, right?
Yeah, the cool turkey stuff. I remember like reading this and thinking it was like, oh yeah, okay, and now reading it now, like it just so smacks of like, no, you have a problem, and you should probably address the problem without using words like cool turkey.
Do you wish that she chose a different word besides smack?
No, I don't. I think that works. It does. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. So yeah, but like just his relationship with his brother is really poignant to me. It works very well. What do you guys think about Henry as he's portrayed here?
As you get the sense that Eddie idolizes Henry, and maybe Henry was a good guy at some point, but even if that's the case, he has become so subsumed by his addiction for so long that it doesn't really matter anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even if his intentions were good, even if he tried to keep Eddie safe, he didn't. He did such a bad job at that.
Talk about bad babysitters.
Yeah. I think that's for people a lot of times, and I can recognize this. King likes to fall back on certain stereotypes for almost every single one of his books, and the younger sibling looking up to an older sibling that at the same time mistreats them. I think it's something that he does a lot, but he does it very, very well. Maybe it's just because of being a younger brother that I can kind of sympathize with that pretty easily. Mm-hmm. But like, I feel like this relationship, for as little as we actually get of it, like we get little glimpses here and there. But I think that it is so brought to the surface immediately whenever that line, the great sage and eminent junkie. And but he's saying that almost like in this, like, I look up to and listen to my older brother kind of a way. That line, it's obviously sarcastic whenever he's saying eminent junkie, how he thinks of his brother, but he also thinks of him as someone to take advice from still. And I think that works really well.
He means both at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, even though he's being sarcastic, like, Eddie is smart enough to realize there's some truth there, even if he's not quite willing to acknowledge that truth yet. Mm-hmm. Like, he definitely understands that Henry is not great for him, but like he's his brother. What is he going to do? Like, walk away from his brother? There's no way.
I think they even call it as much later on, but mm-hmm. it's codependence is what it is. Like Henry has tricked him through this whole protector shtick, and that his mom kind of reinforced into thinking that, okay, well, we need each other in this world, no matter which direction we're both going. Like, we're going to be tied to each other no matter what.
I think really it would have worked out way better if they just pulled over the Impala, got out, started talking, and I forgot. This is the wrong podcast. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize.
Are you guys buzz marketing? Come on. that part comes at the end.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, man, I just Eddie, even though he's a little bit of a villain, like all the people who end up being part of the quartet are a huge danger to Roland, at the very start. But even still, like, I don't know. I think that his relationship with Henry is really well drawn, and like his development as a character throughout the series comes with him trying to manage that almost to this, this voice in his head. Again, this is all about, I don't know, the people that we carry around with us, unwillingly. Be that
Henry's not just gonna go away. No. Like, Henry's gonna be a part of Eddie for the rest of the series. Like, no matter what's happening, like, a majority of the time, like, Henry's still a voice in Eddie's mind. Mm-hmm. Much like the gunslinger will come to be in a voice in almost all of this quartet's mind when he finally draws all of them through these doors. Like, he becomes a real presence. And mm-hmm. This relationship is, Stephen, you mentioned this, how Stephen King is good at this. King makes these interpersonal relationships, and he layers them so well that they feel very, very real. Like, there's characters in this book that are like show up just briefly and then disappear that feel like real life characters. And I think that's one thing that King really, really excels at, are these like tiny kind of details that they're not plot significant. They're character significant, but not even in a way that would affect like the overall story. Like, it's just fascinating to me the way that these two characters kind of come to life with barely any text, right? Like, it's just like a couple of paragraphs, and all of a sudden these characters are alive in your mind.
Yeah. He's good at building characters that are scene significant.
Yeah.
As opposed to just kind of like grandly overarchingly significant. So we get this kind of scene of him recentering himself in the bathroom, but as Roland kind of comes forward to get a better look, he notices that his eyes change color, that they go from being kind of hazel to being the color of worn Levi's is what Eddie says. Again, amazing imagery there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then he also hears a voice in his mind, talking about like, the sky carriage.
And sky carriage is such a ridiculous phrase, like two words put together.
And whenever Roland comes forward, Eddie kind of blanks out, which is something he never does, even when he's on a nod. So something is up, when Roland comes forward and orders a popkin at the seat. Oh boy, I've got issues with popkin, guys.
Tell me, I want to hear your issues with Popkins.
Please elaborate.
Hold on, let me open my Naza Cola real quick, and then I'll talk about some Popkins.
Your Naza? Yeah, no, I just think the pot it is a patently ridiculous word to call a sandwich. It just
it bears absolutely no resemblance whatsoever. Like if Roland said Popkin, I have no idea what he's talking about. I at least know what he's talking about when he says sky carriage.
Yeah. But yeah, Popkin is the sandwich. I guess because there was no Earl of Sandwich where they were at, but I don't know. I don't see it.
But there's definitely an Earl of Popkin. Is that
the
statement?
Yeah. He was the Earl. He lived in Popkin, and he didn't like to touch his meat, so he used a bread glove.
I can't wait to meet the Duke of Tudorfish later. Then
I was going to point out, I do love that Roland keeps calling it Tudorfish.
Yeah. You mentioned this earlier, Cole, and like the times where Roland gets our language wrong. Like I can see how people would be kind of annoyed by it because it's kind of precious. It's very much the like the funny robot in a Star Wars movie. Like it's there to kind of draw off a little bit of tension, but it works for me every damn time. Just like those robots in Star Wars work for me every damn time. So
yeah. He Eddie even calls it out, saying like, "Oh, he speaks in such a weird, archaic way. It's kind of cute," which that doesn't excuse it if it bothers you. Like if you know it's a problem, change it. I don't think it's a problem. I just think Popkin is a really goofy word.
It is a goofy word, but again, like it's one of those things. Like it's one of those earworms. Like. I mean, I've used the word Popkin outside of talking about the Dark Tower before. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit that.
Oh yeah, I've accidentally fired off a thank you sigh. Like it happens. It gets in there, you know. So he orders this this Tudor fish sandwich, and we get this we get this recollection the Eddie has that I kind of laid out before, where he stops the sallow thing from tricking him as he gets the Coke for his boss. And also his dealer, kind of, Enrico Balazar. Not a dealer, but kind of the kingpin of the organization. There's another quote here that I want to lay out that, again, it typifies the relationship between Eddie and Henry. The trouble with him and Henry was they were like Charlie Brown and Lucy. The only difference was once in a while, Henry would hold on to the football so Eddie could kick it. Not often, but once in a while. Which is, again, like it relies on the reference. You have to know what pulling the football away from Charlie Brown means. But that is, again, a great way to talk about, you know, kind of an abusive relationship a little bit. Yeah.
And not only that, but he talks about wanting to write to Charles Schultz and tell him that if he really wants to mess with Charlie Brown, here's how to do it. But I don't think that's what you're supposed to take away from Peanuts.
And again, he's simultaneously being sarcastic and grim, but also being like genuine about it. Like there's a hurt in that.
Yeah.
So during this whole exchange, you know, while Roland is coming forward, there is a stewardess on board who notices Eddie's eyes changing color. She thinks Eddie's a little cute, not much, but cute. And one of the things that kind of perked her up about him was his soft hazel eyes. But noticing that they turn this glacier blue, she thinks, oh, he's got contacts, he's probably really vain, etc., etc. Before realizing and remembering her training. She has a court in her past, you know, training to be a flight attendant. Saying, hey, you always notice when something's wrong. Like, never forget if you see something that's out of the ordinary.
Presumably, the flight attendant trainer isn't like knocking them over the head and giving them concussions all the time.
I think it's probably like emotional violence.
Okay. I've not worked at an airline before, so I'm gonna bow to your expertise on that. I really like this whole thing with Jane, the stewardess. Like she goes into like, this is pages of stuff where she's going back and forth about what she should do, trying to logic out everything. And it's exactly what like you would expect a trained professional on an airplane to do while like seeing somebody's eyes change color. Like it's really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And so she kind of puts it at the back of her mind a little bit as Roland is back in his world with his magic disappearing ghost Tudor fish sandwich. And thinks about like the man in black's voice comes to him and says, hey, you could probably steal Eddie's body and live a life, right? But he's not going to do that because that would be the most heinous form of thievery imaginable.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, that makes me paranoid.
Yeah, Also, like, I don't want to. We glossed over there. Like, Roland is able to take things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, whenever he does inhabit Eddie and he grabs something, he's able to take them back with him through the door.
Yeah. Which is it's kind of weird because like simultaneously he dwells on the physicality of moving back and forth through the doors and like where they're at in the world, but also it feels very kind of like loosey goosey and ethereal almost.
Which I think is the way you have to do it. Otherwise, it's just going to be nonsense. Like if you try to buckle down on what exactly is going on.
It's not a problem. I don't think. And I'm very happy that he establishes the rules for this because these doors are very much a Deus Ex Machina in terms of the way this book needs to work, but they're also establishing, you know, the permeable membrane between Roland's world and different versions of ours.
Yeah.
It's not a problem necessarily, but I do have a problem with when it's a little bit later. It's in the next chapter when Eddie gets the food for him and he takes it back through. And the description of what happens where it fades and Eddie can see his hands through it, that just always seemed hokey to me. And I'm not sure if there was a better way for that to be described, but that just always bugged me.
Very Back to the Future one.
Well, yeah, what I'm picturing is a bad film special effect. Like, I think King is kind of working with the special effects of the time when he's writing that or envisioning it. And just like what he would probably imagine is like a crossfade between like, one frame they're there and one frame it's not, like a Bewitched kind of thing almost.
I didn't think about that. I never really thought about writing being limited by the special effects in movies available at the time, but that makes sense, especially for somebody who's as visual a writer as King is.
Yeah.
I'm with you that it feels a little hokey, Evan. I've always thought that this whole thing, like, it's fine. I'm glad he doesn't go into any more detail. I feel like he could have lost the watching the hot dogs like disappear in Eddie's hands or whatever and been fine with it too. Like the less that moving physical objects between our dimension and Roland's like crappy backwater dimension, like the better. Like the less we talk about how all this stuff works, the better everybody is.
Yeah. Like if they would have like Arkham Knight Jokered it into the scene, like, the hot dog was there as though it had always been there and you just hadn't noticed it. Like I feel shitty giving Stephen King notes on it, but like they probably could have done a nice little tasteful cutaway on that.
That's honestly always kind of what I wished would have happened. I don't want to see how the footlong hot dog gets made.
Yeah, exactly.
Hollow Man's in.
Oh God. Oh man, how long has it been since I thought about Hollow Man?
Too long.
So we move on to chapter 3, Contact and Landing. And again, this just ratchets up the tension because this is like a locked room murder almost, except it's, you know, trying to get out. How do we get this cocaine out of the locked room when everything is set up to make sure it doesn't?
We did talk about like that Eddie is strapped down with a pound of cocaine like to his body, right? Like, he's got it like taped well to his body. Like he's got this.
Took like 20 minutes to get it on there.
Yeah. Like this, they put some effort into this. So like Eddie's super nervous about clearing customs, which I really like Roland's how Roland capitalizes clearing customs like it's some like grand like formal event.
Yeah,
it's really good.
The clearing of the customs.
yeah, the clearing of the customs, exactly.
Yeah, and he's
again that language works for me.
Yeah, well, and he's getting this, like, you know, I like the description of him calling up the words for things out of what is kind of like at the surface thoughts of the people that he's inhabiting. Like, you know, throughout all of this, he doesn't know Eddie's name. Like he knows Henry's name because Eddie always thinks about it. Eddie never thinks of himself. So he doesn't know what to call him. And in fact, he keeps on calling him the prisoner when they eventually talk.
Man, and you want to talk about somebody who does not like being called the prisoner. Does not like. Somebody called me Germ the other day, and I was like, you don't call me that.
Germ?
Yeah, don't ask. It's a long story.
Okay, like you spent the rest of the day like you lit a match and threw it at their feet, right?
I don't get that reference, but yeah, that's what I did.
No, it's a thing I would do if somebody, like if I was named Jeremy and somebody called me Germ, I would just spend the day throwing lit matches at them until they went away.
Oh my god!
And they wouldn't catch me. They're not soaked in gasoline. It's just it's a harmless but very threatening gesture. Come on.
You could just turn around and walk away too. I mean,
Yeah. Well, that's the goal. I want him A, to be gone, and B, to understand that what he did isn't cool.
I guess maybe because I have a brother named Jeremy, and I've definitely called him Germ when I was young and thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we get another flashback of this. Again, the him being strapped down with all of this cocaine. Oh gosh, that sounds so painful. Having all that stuff, and especially later on when they're trying to remove it under a time constraint. Yeah, no good. And back in the present day, Eddie snorts just a little bit of heroin, a little tootski of heroin to take the edge off.
That's how you know you're in a good place in life.
Yeah.
I just need a little bit of key bump so I can get through the day. That's not good.
And as he tries to get less edgy, Jane, our gunslinger stewardess, the army woman, as Roland calls her, readies her thermos as a weapon, which that has to be a thing, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I wonder if that is something that Stephen King came up with as a quick way for a stewardess to improvise a weapon, or if that's actually something that stewardesses or flight attendants do. I shouldn't say stewardess.
Sure, I'm not sure, but either way, I love Jane as a character so much.
yeah.
It's what an unexpectedly badass character.
Yeah, like she, throughout all this, it's darting back and forth between these different characters, and we get a good deal of Jane's inner monologue as she like runs down the different possibilities and like convinces herself like, hey, this is about to go down. And I don't know, like, even though I want Roland to live, I'm kind of rooting for Jane because she's just doing her job in a very good way. Like, I would want her to do this even if there wasn't a mystical cowboy thought-jacking a man.
Oh, totally. Like, she's such a cool character because, like, she sees the situation and decides, like, oh, I need to do something about this. Mm-hmm. Instead of, just kind of like what I feel like a lot of, maybe not other writers, but I feel like, especially at the time, like, they'd be like, oh, then she goes and she gets the cool dude with the gun on the plane. And it's, no, she takes everything that she has and she's ready to do whatever she has to do to take care of this problem.
Yeah, like she does go get the cool man, the pilot, who fucks it up. Like the pilot's a bumbling jackass. Like, if she would have given him the old 1-2 heave ho, your face is gone, this would have ended in a different way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so Roland recognizes, like, just basically does that whole describe it to a Martian kind of thing of like, oh, she sees that something is wrong, and she's holding something up. I thought it was a canteen, but it's actually a weapon, and she's probably going to twist the top off and shoot it at me. So, like, we need to do something about this.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because you've got it's almost like this battle of the former trainers, because you've got Jane's her mentor. I don't remember if they reference her name or not, but
no, they don't. I don't think so. I didn't make a note of it.
Yeah,
Court Junior.
You've got Jane trying to remember her training about being observant and being prepared and being vigilant, and then you've got Roland and Court's training about the same stuff. Mm-hmm. And neither one of them totally knows what's going on, but they both know enough to know that something's up. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit later on, but this is kind of like a recurring thing throughout this chapter, where they're just kind of both this unknowing battle of wits between people that aren't aware that they're engaged in it necessarily. Mm-hmm. But Roland talks about his years and his training of mingled torture and precision. Mm. And that's just man, what a line.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I didn't think about the two of them the two of their trainers doing a battle of wits by proxy, but that is very apt. Like, everything in this is about a proxy almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Yeah, so Roland knows, hey, if Eddie doesn't complete this ritual of the clearing of the customs, I'm going to die, eaten by these monsters on the beach after my heart explodes due to infection.
Eaten by what, Cole?
What? Oh, Lobstrosity. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. I would feel terrible.
I was about to start throwing matches at your feet.
Yeah. But okay, we need to act on this. So he runs a test because he gets an idea if he's able to bring things from this world into his, he wants to know if he can bring things from his world into this one. So he runs this test, bringing a quarter back, and he says, yes, this man on the quarter looks both dignified and vain. And then he looks on the back like, holy shit, an eagle. That's our sign. Not which lots of places like eagles, man. But then the plan starts to form, and he makes contact with Eddie, saying like, hey, you're not going crazy. And they go back and forth on that for a little bit. It's very much it's up for debate whether or not either of them are going crazy at this point. But saying, hey, when you get a chance, go to the bathroom. I have a safe place for you to keep this cocaine.
I also like here that Roland mentally slaps Eddie a couple of times. And like what that must actually feel like, that it feels like you are being slapped, but it's only in your mind, but it's by this voice, not just a thought. This is a very funny visual to me.
Yeah. He's really giving it to him, and then when later on when Eddie goes into Roland's world, he just beats the shit out of him. He boxes his ears. Yeah. I think he boxes Eddie's ears with his diminished hand. So it's gonna be, I don't care how much this hurts me. I'm gonna punch you, you little piece of shit. Maggot. He calls him maggot, just like Court does.
Yeah, he very much immediately turns into Court without realizing it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
So Eddie says to the pilot, hey, I'm going to throw up on your feet if I don't go into the bathroom, very much under protest, and ends up being drawn into Roland's world as Roland kind of makes the door visible to him. And Eddie's first impression of Roland is, hey, this man is dead, and he didn't even know it. Yeah, like it's bad.
Which again, like taking that juxtaposition of where Roland and who he was in the first book, and then this pitiful, gaunt man, with everything except for his eyes being essentially dead and rotting as he's walking.
The eyes full of terrible and tenacious vitality.
Describing like the skin of his cheeks looking like tattered cloth, like stretched across a frame and about to rip. Yeah, it's a bad scene.
And this scene where they cut the tape off of Eddie to get these cocaine bags off of his skin, like it's the most like cringeworthy. Like I just like the whole time I was reading, like I'm moving my body around like someone has a sharp knife up to me that's trying not to cut me. Like I don't know what it is about this scene that just sets my nerves on edge. Like because they're peeling this off and then they have to get the knife, and part of this is like behind Eddie. And Roland reaches out and grabs the knife and says, I'm going to do this part. And his hand is visibly shaking. And then he just like basically Jean Grey's his hand still. Like he just like and zips it up. And like Eddie can feel like the force of will off of him. Like that's how strong Roland's will is, which is kind of cheesy, but also like Roland is such a badass at this point that you just accept anything about him.
Yeah. There's a funny little interaction. So this whole thing is kind of farcical. It's kind of like a Lucy sketch. They're arguing about the best way to take to take this off. Like Eddie's, zoning out because he's just taken heroin. He doesn't think this is real. He's got Henry's voice in his head saying flip flop, hippity hop, off of your rocker and over the top. Life's a fiction. The world's a lie. So put on some Credence and let's get high. Like he's completely like jabbering in his head. And Roland holds the knife up. And Eddie asks him, are you left-handed? Roland says, no. And he says, oh, Jesus.
Only in some things. No, but there's a part where Eddie turns around, looks through the door, and then sees the reflection of himself in the mirror, and then also in the reflection, the door, and then himself back on the beach with Roland.
Yep.
Like, and that moment has to, like, I don't, like, it's amazing that Eddie sees that and his brain just doesn't break. like a Lovecraftian protagonist, because I feel like that's what I would do if I saw that.
That's foreshadowing for later too.
Yes,
actually. So
yeah.
I didn't realize that until I read it very closely, because it's kind of a blink and you miss it kind of thing. But yeah, like I cannot blame Eddie for thinking that none of this is real, and that he's just having a terrible not trip. I don't think you trip on heroin. I'm such a square, guys.
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't even know you could snort heroin. So I thought you just shoot it.
That's
how you do drugs.
That's how Uma Thurman almost dies in Pulp Fiction.
See, I always think that that's just cocaine. I don't know how drugs work, guys.
She snorted way too much heroin. You can also get heroin in pill form. Like that's like, you can do some stuff.
Yeah,
hey, fun facts.
It's a real thing. I also like they swear to each other. Henry and Eddie swear that they'll never inject. That they're just going to snort because.
It's way classier.
Yeah. Man. So we get this kind of like comedy smash cut as the pilots bust down the door, and there's Eddie sitting there saying like, "Hey guys, I'm shitting. I can't reach the door." Because he doesn't want to lean forward, and like Eddie has gone into full on like, shucking and jiving mode, just like saying like, yeah, like joking with the guys, trying to like obfuscate what is going on, that nothing, like, hey, what are you guys doing? I'm taking a shit here, and also I need to cover my small dick so the ladies don't see. Like he's totally on his feet, as though he's trying to talk his way out of a jam on the street corner, not facing down, as one of the stewardesses says, a series of small rooms that he's going to be in for the rest of his life.
The swagger this guy has right now, like just to like talk shit to the pilot, to flirt with the stewardesses, like it's just amazing. And I know he's high, and I know he's kind of like his adrenaline is probably like flooded his body at this point, because it's a crazy weird situation. But like, man, the swag.
I was gonna say, this is kind of like personifying that idea that he's got the steel, but he doesn't have the training. And I feel like this is a moment where like he kind of. King is showing him how he does know how to work himself out of a situation, but he's kind of going too far with it, because the pilot even knows, like I think says something along the lines of, he looks like a cat who got the cream. Like he knows what he was doing, and he knows Eddie looks like he just got away with the world. But at the same time, what are you going to do? He can't do anything about it. So
I think he's confident because he got a freebie.
Exactly.
You can't get it. Just solve the riddle, Mr. Pilot Man. And so I want to counter that, because you say, hey, he's untrained. He's accomplished this. He's done something remarkable, but he doesn't know how to he doesn't know when to stop. Like Eddie's mouth is his gun. And we're seeing it so early.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit like, I mean, even like with Roland's gun, whenever he was younger, it was, you could tell that it was trained and that it was deadly, but he's a little, I think this is a really good juxtaposition with Roland as in those flashbacks that we get in the first book, where he might be, he's man, I can't remember what the man in black says to him, but there's something along the lines of, you're either smart or you're dull. And that is very much Eddie here. Like this is Eddie is, and it makes more sense now that I picture Eddie being a lot younger. That he is very much a young Roland at this point.
Yeah.
As much as Roland has ever been young in his entire life.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, after all of this happens, Eddie's basically carried off of the plane and through the airport. He says like, oh, his feet touch the ground like maybe 4 times before he gets to the small interrogation room, as people kind of watch on. And with that suspenseful note, that's where we're going to leave you. Until next time.
I'm sure it'll all be fine.
Nothing, no heads are going to roll. So I just wanted to let that land. So the next chapter is going to go up through the rest of the prisoner section of the book. So the next 3 or 4 chapters or so. And I don't know who's going to be joining us next time, but I'm sure it'll be another fine group of people like y'all. So let's kind of wrap things up here. Any kind of things that we didn't say about this first section of the book, any of the characters, any of the events, kind of summaries and wrap ups.
I'll step in real quick and just say that I had in my head, I thought we were going like for the next 2 chapters. So now I am super disappointed I don't get to talk about it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too.
No,
Me
no,
too,
that's not on you. That's totally on me. Like I just literally pulled up the thing and I was like, oh, I thought we were doing. So this book is so much fun. Like even from this outset, like I mentioned this at the very beginning of the podcast where like we're just off and rolling and everything with Eddie is just so much fun. Like the smartassery as opposed to juxtaposed with Roland's like super seriousness, it just really, really works for me. Roland like messing up names and calling things tutorfish is always hilarious to me. Like all of this stuff really, really works. I am 100% into this. In fact, I haven't stopped reading it yet. Like I read the first part for this chapter and I was like, well, time to keep going. Like I'm almost done with the book now.
Evan, how about you?
I especially this first third of the book is it's super intense and brutal at the very beginning, but all the Eddie stuff and not just in this book but throughout the rest of the series is just great. And I'm always kind of disappointed that we don't get to hear more about Cuthbert. I think it's actually Cuthbert, but I hate that. So
either or.
It's always been Cuthbert, even when the narrator was saying something different. Yeah. But I was always disappointed that we don't get more of him because that's basically just bonus Eddie.
Oh God! If Eddie stayed on the Brooklyn scene for a little bit longer, his nickname would have been Bonus Eddie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
but it's so much fun and it's so fast paced, it's so kinetic and so just engaging. And yeah, Eddie's character develops so much in such interesting ways in such a very short span of time. And then after we get out of this section and onto the Lady of the Shadows, it keeps developing and you keep not expecting where it's going to go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Stephen, how about you?
Yeah, just like we keep saying from the very beginning of this book how much it's so different. Like, I mean, the Lobstrosities are horrifying and all that stuff, but there's an element of comedy to them. So it feels like just like from the beginning of this book that the situations there, you're able to take them very, very seriously. Like we go from these lobster monsters eating Roland on the beach to Eddie on a plane trying to smuggle drugs for this dude Balazar, who sounds like a real bad dude. Like those are all terrible situations, but like King really susses out the comedy in these situations, and I think that it makes this book a lot more fun than the last one was to read. Like that last one was a lot of dire stuff happening. It's still good, but like this is when it really gets rolling, and like how Eddie and Roland play like a buddy cop duo. Like they're back and forth on the beach, like where they're arguing and they're trying to do this, but it's also real tense. Like that whole scene just really like it gets me really excited to read the rest of the books because the character interactions that continue to happen in this, like the way King just wraps up this real weird cast of characters by the end of the series, like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a boatload of misfits. When you characterize it as a buddy cop movie, I pictured it as Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. Almost.
Yes. Oh God.
You know that comedy 7.
Yeah, the comedy 7.
Yeah. Comedy. Wow.
What's in that box over there?
Hey, what's in that box?
This is like the strange prequel to the movie that we talked about in the last episode of season 1 for the Gunslinger with Will Ferrell as the.
Oh God. Yeah.
You're saying that the other guys are the drawing of the.
I'm sorry. Oh my God. That made me laugh so hard that I coughed. Yeah. Yeah. I think. Go ahead.
I feel like we're on the precipice of some really, really beautiful synergy with the boys over at Pitch Industries with some of these movie concepts.
Yeah, I think that they can really pick up Bad Babysitter and move on to the other guys.
Absolutely.
So, all that absurdity aside, I really need to stop laughing. I'm going to start hiccuping. All of that aside, I think you guys nailed it. I couldn't agree with you more. This is such a relaxed book for as quickly as it moves. Like it feels like it is written by a more comfortable writer, and I think that is a tone that's going to kind of be carried forward. through this and through the majority of the series until the pace and the structure picks back up again. I think that the series only benefits by having Eddie in. And let's not have any illusions about the purpose Eddie serves. He's the only sane man and the person who looks at Roland's world through the lens of our own.
Yeah.
You know, he's meant to be kind of a late edition viewpoint character who is not this strange and disaffected, I've died multiple times little boy that, you know, that Jake is. So he's kind of tailor made to be identifiable, for a certain kind of person who's likely to be reading a Stephen King book, you know. But it works, and even if I can't see the strings, it's effective, and I really wouldn't have it any other way. I think that like Eddie's up there with some of the best characters that King's ever written. You know,
yeah, I agree
for sure. And I'm very excited to continue talking about it, but we must take a small break, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with the remainder of the Prisoners saga. So before we do the whole admin stuff, I want to give you guys a chance to tell about your own things. So Jeremy and Stephen, you guys were talking about something earlier.
Yeah, me and Stephen do a podcast called Monster of the Week, where we are covering every single episode of the Supernatural TV show. And so far, we're still sane.
It just got renewed for a 15th season, so
13th. Yep. We had literally the day that they announced that, we had just wrapped the first 20 episodes. And then they just literally added 22 more. So like we're no longer
another half year of content.
Yep. Good stuff. But it's a delightful podcast. We do it with a guy named Chris Mosier, who and we're all big fans of Supernatural, and it ends up being a little bit less serious than this show, if you can imagine.
Holy shit.
We like to goof on the show a lot. But we also have a huge love for it. So it's one of those great things where we can talk about how great it is and also talk about how absolutely ridiculous it is. Yeah. And also hunks. If you like
hunks, lots and lots of creepy hunks.
Lots of creepy hunks.
I've only seen a couple episodes of that show, but it was just lousy with hunks.
Yeah.
Come get your hunks. We got hunks all over here.
Yeah, a lot of man meat up for sale. Yeah, but what else, Jeremy? You do a whole bunch of stuff, don't you?
Oh yeah, you can find Monster of the Week at monsteroftheweek.cool. I don't think I actually mentioned that, but because I love the new TLDs. Monsteroftheweek.cool is the best thing ever. But
go
you can
there
just
for
find
all yours. Yeah, I was gonna say, just go there for all your 6 supernatural gifts. Really
absolutely. Yeah, we have a whole page dedicated to garbage supernatural stuff where we just keep posting stuff that we find. It's great. You can find me on Twitter at JG Greer, and that's where I post all of my stuff, including my Duckfeed podcast that I do with Gary Butterfield called Days of Future Cast, where we talk about X-Men. So yeah.
Stephen, how about you?
I am at From Soft Junkie, and yeah, right now Monster of the Week is the cast I'm rolling regularly. So
nice. And Evan, how about you?
EvanJonesThorne.com has pretty much all my interesting stuff going on right now. I'm at Mr_Harder, all spelled out on Twitter. And as always, at Sad Paul Stanley on Twitter as well.
Yeah. Recommended. And you can find me at Kole Ross on the old Twitter and on a bunch of shows at Duckfeed.tv. We're getting ready to roll up or just recently launched a new show all about the music of REM. The band that crawled from the South, that is called File Underwater, and you're going to be able to listen to it over at Duckfeed.tv. So for this show, I mentioned it at the beginning and kind of the call to action section, but please share this with your friends, people who like the books or are interested in Stephen King or are looking for something to kind of accompany their first kind of run through the series. We welcome all if they can get through our impenetrable references. Just tell them to listen from the beginning; they're fine.
Just start with the first Duckfeed podcast and work your way back up.
Yeah, it'll be about I think. I've never totaled it up. It would be shocking if I did. Probably at least it's months of content at this point. But I mean, this show, come on, like we're on episode 7. They can go back. It's fine. But most of all, come back next time here in 2 weeks for the continuation of the Drawing of the Three and for the rest of the show about the entire Dark Tower series. We're so happy that you joined us, and until next time, long days and pleasant nights.
Awesome.
Got to fit it in.
I'm sorry.
No, we have to. It needs to happen.